You know who I'd like to see the Mariners sign? JD Martinez.
Oh, I kind of like what you're thinking at, Lau. Lau, do you have a bigger pitch on JD Martinez? What's your pitch on JD Martinez?
I do. And if we're going to get into our first topic here of JD Martinez and the fit with the Mariners, here it is. He's not going back to the Dodgers. The Dodgers kind of have a DH now. And if you want to listen to us talk about the Dodgers' new DH, we did a reactionary show on Saturday that's about 20 minutes. You can go back and listen to that. So JD's probably going somewhere else. Why can't it be Seattle? This guy hits the ball extremely hard. He has a 10-year track record of success. He just came off a great 2023, and the Mariners need bats. And by the way, I don't think he's going to cost that much. Sign me up for this guy.
What do you qualify not costing that much?
Okay, he would cost a lot in the Mariners budget. I'm thinking like, I don't know, 2-year deal somewhere between 20 to 24 million.
I said 3 for 45.
Oh, so you're going higher. But okay, so
like thinking about the inflation on bats this offseason.
Yeah, fair. But would you pay JD that money?
Yeah. Dude, this guy has the best looking baseball savant page I think I've ever seen. I sent you the screenshot yesterday of his year by year expected stats. Well, it is a wall of red. A wall.
Yeah, the only thing that was kind of missing from that page is if you look at his 2023 profile, he struck out a little bit more than he usually does, and he wasn't walking quite as much. But it's not Teoscar Hernandez levels of strikeouts and walks. And in fact, his track record says he is not that guy. And when you look at everything else he does, oh my God, he just crushes baseballs left and right. Like nothing phases that guy. He's 30. He just finished his age 35 season. He's still hitting the ball as hard as ever.
Here's what I'm going to say on JD Martinez. Looking at his batted ball profile, if he were to sign in Seattle and fail, I give up. I would officially turn in my fandom card and say, I'm retiring. Obviously, the players cannot hit in this ballpark. I don't know what needs to change, but something needs to. Because JD Martinez, if you just take a look, there's no weakness really in his profile. Before this season, there really was no weakness in his hitting profile. This dude hits the ball hard. He hits the barrel consistency. He hits the sweet spot consistency. His expected batting is high. His quality of contact is high. His expected slugging is high as well. And, he just DHs. We finally have heard the Mariners say, we will put a DH squarely in the DH spot. We're not going to platoon guys. We're not going to rotate guys in. We're going to put just a DH there if we can. And JD Martinez would have been a fantastic person in the DH spot last year. And even though he has some strikeout problems this year, he would be a good fit in that DH spot. Here's the drawback, and here's the reason why they wouldn't sign him, Lyle. After watching what the Mariners did at the plate last season, and they struck out way too much, staring at a soon-to-be 36-year-old JD Martinez in the box in 2023, striking out 31% of the time. That's going to make, even with this batted ball profile, that's going to make Jerry Dipoto wince and make Jerry Dipoto a little more hesitant as to adding JD Martinez given the moves they've made this offseason.
Probably a little bit, but again, it's not like Teoscar Hernandez because while Teo always hit the ball hard, he had a history of striking out and he never walked. JD Martinez isn't like that. Now, I understand that his walk rate was down and his K rate was up this past year, but who's to say he can't turn that around next year? Because usually, for the most part of JD's career, especially about this 10-year stretch when he's been really good, he strikes out in the low to mid-20s range, which is certainly manageable. And he walks more at about 8 or 9% of the time, which is around league average, maybe slightly above league average. Honestly, there's been some years where he walked 10% of the time or more, but those days are probably behind him. I don't see why he can't get back to that. Like, this is only 1 year he had some issues with strikeouts and walks, and it wasn't even the level that Teo had it with. So who's to say he can't rebound?
But here's the optics I want you to think about. First of all, think of when the timing of the year. The timing of the year is his age 35 season, his oldest season. Bat speed slows down. Eye at the plate isn't quite as good, isn't as sharp. Again, when you lose bat speed, you're going to have to cheat a little bit more, and you might chase a little bit more often. I don't think I'm as optimistic as you as that his swing and miss will go away. I mean, I looked at some of his swing rates on Fangraphs, And there wasn't really that much change. His chase rate stayed almost the exact same. His swinging inside and outside the zone pretty much stayed the exact same as they were in his past season, where he struck out 24% of the time in 2022. The only thing that changed is he just stopped hitting pitches out of the zone. And what that tells me is that his bat speed was not good enough to hit pitches that were not in the strike zone, which for someone who doesn't chase is not an issue. But JD Martinez chases. He has chased in his career. He's sometimes been a decent walk guy, but that hasn't stopped him from swinging at pitches out of the strike zone. But now that he can't catch up to some of these pitches out of the strike zone, that is an issue. He might not strike out 31% of the time. He might strike out a little bit less, 28, 27%. But I think Jerry would think that is a little bit high as well. And it's hard. I will say it is very hard to have as productive a season that JD Martinez had in 2023 while striking out that much. A 135 WRC plus, made an all-star game as a hitter despite striking out that much. That's pretty difficult to do and pretty difficult to repeat.
I was just about to throw the WRC plus numbers out there. What about the fact he just had that good of an offensive season? What about the fact that outside of a 2020 that you can just throw out the window, because I don't really count 2020 for anybody, it was such a weird year, his lowest WRC plus over the last decade or so was 119, which was in 2022. You know what I would say if JD Martinez was going to put up a 120 WRC plus with the Mariners? Sign me right up. Teoscar Hernandez did not do that. His WRC plus was not 120. If it had been, I think people would have been pretty happy with the guy.
Okay, so if you're asking me if I would sign JD Martinez, yes, I would still sign JD Martinez. So, let's just get that out of the way. Would Jerry sign JD Martinez, given the moves and the philosophical change they have done this offseason, Lyle? I think you and I know the answer to this.
But if you're going to strike out 27% of the time and pair that with a 125 to 130 WRC plus, is that not worth it? They need offense.
Yeah, it is. I think it's worth it. But do they think it's worth it?
I'm asking Jerry. Sorry, I'm not trying to send this back at you. I'm trying to speak this into the podcast verse and hope somehow Jerry hears it one day. That even if he's going to strike out 27-ish% of the time, which again is a little high, but it's not what Gino and Teo and Kelnick and Ford were doing last year. If you're going to strike out 27% of the time and put up a WRC plus of 130, how do you not sign up for that?
It's a good question. That's a good question. I would sign up for it. I'd give him a 3-year deal if he wanted to, because as I've said, and I think I've stayed consistent on this podcast, I really don't care about the money down the road because as these years have gone on and the Mariners have continued to underwhelm, it really 2 years down the road does not matter. Next year matters. And next year, they could really, really use JD Martinez. Heck, when we talked about JD Martinez last offseason on this podcast, I think we both agreed they should give him a shot. And they did not. And he signed a 1-year, $10 million deal, ultra affordable with the Dodgers. And he did this. And to be honest, he would have fit right in with the Mariners last season. He would have fit right in.
You're telling me that instead of having AJ Pollock on a 1-year, $7 million deal, they could have had JD on a 1-year, $10 million deal.
I'm not even talking about AJ Pollock, dog. I'm talking about the GOAT.
I'm thinking. Would I would have rather had AJ Pollock. What am I saying? I'm kidding. I would not have.
Tommy La Stella? You wouldn't have rather had Tommy?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying, if AJ was the biggest free agent contract the Mariners Jerry had ever given to a Mariners position player at $7 million, why couldn't they have just given it to JD Martinez at 10 or 12?
It would have been in the playoffs.
Yeah, they would have made the playoffs with JD. He would have DH'd all the time. They wouldn't have had this platoon of DHs who were just supposed to be utility guys. Well, listen, they've got a chance for redemption here because while JD's now going to be more expensive, they can still sign him. He's still out there. He needs a new team and a team that needs some bats.
Yeah, they have a chance at redemption. They're going to pay. They're going to overpay because of it. Like they probably will. As we've said, the market is a little inflated on hitters this offseason. If they wanted him at a market rate, probably should have paid him last offseason, like we said. But instead, they're going to have to pay the tax of waiting an offseason too long. It's like they did with Nelson Cruz all the way back 10 years ago.
don't forget the Seattle tax, too.
Yep.
It's hard to attract free agents and playing in this ballpark, so they're going to have to overpay other teams that bid for him, too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Mr. Stanton, the ball's in your court. Jerry, we've made our case. JD Martinez, we would sign on. And here's the endorsement you need, Lyle, for all of our listeners and for you, my co-host, to feel confident that the Mariners should get JD Martinez. John Heyman said that the Mariners should be interested in JD Martinez.
Oh, our favorite, our absolute favorite.
Hey, he came out in support of the fans this week. And he was like, yeah, they should probably spend more money.
Wow, Heyman trying to right his wrongs with the Pacific Northwest natives, with the Mariner faithful. He's trying to turn the page. Who thought we'd ever see the day?
Not me. But you know what? If that's the stance John Heyman's going to take, for once in my life, I will say, John Heyman, I agree with you.
And even as we wrap this up, if you want to just throw a couple more stats that are a little more basic out there, JD Martinez hit 33 bombs last year. He's hit 30-plus doubles in 4 of his last 5 full seasons. This guy's career OPS is 874, and his last decade of ball has been pretty unreal. So, sure, he's getting old. Strikeouts are growing up. I don't care. And I'm also kind of done. Outside of the fact that they have this stupid payroll limitation, which should not be a thing, I'm kind of done caring about or worrying about John Stanton's money or the Mariners ownership group's money, Chris Larson, everybody else. They should just go pay good players, period.
They should. And even if JD Martinez hits a career low WRC plus next season, let's say he goes below his career low 119, or in the last decade, sorry, his low is 119. Even if he goes 115, do you think of how monumental of an upgrade that is? Like, that is staggering.
That's about a 10 to 12% upgrade over Teo, which is, yes, an upgrade. It's
I'm not even talking Teo. I'm talking the DH spot.
Oh, well, then you're talking like
30. 30 to 40.
if not more. And again, when I say the last decade, when we give you these numbers over the last decade, we're throwing out 2020 because he had a really bad 2020, but we're not counting that because, again, it was such a weird year.
And we're throwing out his Astros years too, where, by the way, if you don't know JD Martinez's story, he got cut by the Astros. They let him go as a free agent, and the Tigers signed him as a minor league free agent, I think.
I have to look it up.
Yeah. And
it was either that or he got a very small big league contract and then he turned into a star.
Yeah, and he did. And he turned into a absolute star, and he has been one of the best players in baseball since he debuted. One of the best hitters in baseball. I'll say he's a DH, so I don't know if you can say player, but hitters, absolutely. And we have our full endorsement for JD Martinez.